I am joined by Josie Gamble. Hello, Josie.
Hello, how are you doing?
I'm fine. I'm glad to see you again. We met for the first time at the Engage conference at Sky Group in London weeks ago now, but honestly, still a highlight of my year.
It was a fabulous day. It was the Christians in Media conference. I'm a trustee for the charity, whenever you're organising anything, you never know until the day what it's going to be like. But we put a lot of work and effort in, had some fabulous speakers, and the venue, Sky headquarters. I mean, it's to die for.
Yes, we had a chat with them about internet because we're doing live radio on the day, and I'm thinking in my head, okay, this is Sky. They should be quite good at this, the whole data thing. Anyway, most of the time we might get an office account rather than the guest log into. And then we turned up and there was a router with a bunch of Ethernet cables with high-speed internet. And I'm thinking, yeah, I could live with this. Now, that's fine. Not everybody has to have that level, but that, for me, set the precedent for the day.
Oh my word, I did not know that. But yes, you would think they'd be good at it, and they clearly were. I know we live streamed on the day as well, and we recorded. So again, the venue provided all of that, and the tech team to do it. So yes, they are they are good.
Yes, without a doubt. Now, we were just chatting before we started doing this that you and I both had the same sensation actually of, okay, where are we going? Is it just a building? And then you walk in, and the sensation of I suppose, of size of. This is not just a room that's been booked for the day. This is enormous.
It was. I hadn't really pictured what I was going to. I wasn't part of the trustees that scouted out the venue first, so I turned up quite blind. And I think I just assumed it was going to be a building, but it was a campus. There was these 10 massive buildings. It took like 20 minutes to get from the gate to our room. And en route, you're seeing like just building after building that looks phenomenal. But then we get into our building, and on the left there's this like Star Cinema, and then a showcase glass case was the Spider-Man Tom Holland costume that he wore in the Homecoming movie, which I had to snap, prove to my kids that I'd seen it, and show them once I got home, and just sort of mini recording studios everywhere you were looking. It was fabulous. I later found out later in the day that they have a hair salon, a nail salon, a Waterstones, all on site because they're on an industrial estate. They're not in the city of London, and they've got so many staff. They have to provide for them, and about 12 or 13 restaurants on site as well. So I was thinking maybe I could work here. However, I live in the Midlands, and that's in London, so it was kind of out of the question.
Yes, it was good. We drove down where you walked because we had a load of kit and stuff, and it was, are we allowed? Is someone going to come, like, men in black, like what you're doing on site and stuff? But it was really good.
Do you know one thing? You're talking about attention to detail with the router. On the way out, there was a team of technicians putting up the Christmas lights, and I love Christmas. And what I noticed was on the road leading in, it's lined with trees, but every tree has a PowerPoint designed and built into it, and that's when they're plugging the lights in. And I literally just thought, whoever designed this campus thought about the Christmas lights, and that just made my heart smile.
I know. Everything about the day was brilliant, and it was great. I've already chatted with a few of the folk that we met on the day. We spoke to you live on the day as well, and we'll have more of those coming up. But yeah, let's just start with Christians in Media then. So you're talking about being a trustee. Just give us an overview. What's Christians in Media all about, and how did you find yourself as one of the trustees for it?
It's a very good question. So I've been a trustee for a couple of years, I think. I'm rubbish at timescales. And it's really championing those Christians who are in media, and not just Christian media, in the secular media, in Christian media, and that's traditional media and non-traditional media, because there's a rise of all sorts of different media platforms. So where the traditional media would be sort of more traditionally journalism, newspapers, radio, TV, broadcasting, it's a much broader spectrum now with podcasting, content creation, and all that kind of spectrum. And so it's a place. The charity is 50 years old. It's been going a long time. It actually started within the BBC. They wanted to start some religious broadcasting, and they kind of gleaned some of the Christian people in the organization at the time. They kind of came together, formed this charity, and it's had a few sort of name changes over the years, but the mission is still championing those Christians who are in the media. And so the conference on the day, it was, how to disagree well, discussions around that. It was how to keep your integrity in a world where there's so much fake news. So we had so many speakers from so many different kind of corners of media. It was just really, really encouraging and great also to kind of be in a room with, broadcasters and presenters and radio and media. So that was great. It was a lot of networking and connecting. And the second part of your question, how did I find myself here? Sometimes I ask myself the same question, but I wear several different hats. And I run my own design business. I've done that for 18 years, nearly 19 years now. And I work from home. I do brand, graphic and web design. But the other kind of hats I wear are I am the founder and director of the Christian Creative Network and the Christian Creative Directory. And I've run that for sort of 10-ish years. I can talk more about what they are in a minute, but so I was invited by the then chair of trustees of Christians in Media because of everything I'm doing with the network and directory, and there's a lot of crossover with media and creativity. So a lot of Christian creatives are in the media, and I do think all media, there's an element of creativity in it. So I was then invited to kind of be part of the board of trustees. So I sit on the board. I would probably still identify where the hat of I am a creative rather than I'm a media person, but I do work in the media and I support and champion those who do as well. So that is how I have ended up there.
In a few interesting hats. Let's just start with the design work, and I want to get into networking stuff as well, because in a sense, the Engage conference was many things to many people, but definitely an element of networking in there. So let's just go to the design element of who you are. I would definitely say I was a creative. That's how my mind thinks. I don't have a nice, neat, ordered desk in a sense, because I've got lots of hats as well, running a magazine or a news hub or a radio station. Where did your love of design come from? Because for me personally, it sort of comes out, how can I transmit a message to others that's exciting, that's going to make their lives better? That's always been my excitement. What was that for you?
So I guess from a very young age, I loved the kind of arts and creativity. I could kind of see that through my schooling, through my training. So I then took particular subjects when you got to choose that kind of led more to the design and the art side of things. Although my A levels, I actually did maths, physics and art because I wanted to become an architect. But I then did an art foundation course, explored all the different types of arts, which you don't really get to in the GCSE and A levels. It's very restrictive. It was actually my tutors who said, you're brilliant at all the three-dimensional stuff. You should do industrial product design as a degree. So I looked into it and I did. I applied to Wolverhampton University. I live here in Wolverhampton still. I applied to the university. So my degree was industrial product design, or the other name it had was woods, metals and plastics. So we would work on the computers, three-dimensional modeling. We would design products. We worked in the workshops making the models. So it was really hands-on, really practical. I absolutely loved it. I did actually do, a year at Bible College before I came. So that was kind of my degree. I graduated first class honours. I was invited to be a lecturer back at the university, and I lectured for 7 years on the industrial product design and interior design course. And I did that 3 days a week. 2 days a week I worked from a church. I was a youth and student pastor. It was a brand new church. Another reason why I came to Wolverhampton, it was only myself and the pastor that were employed. So you wear, again, many hats. I ended up doing all the comms and websites and stuff. So I kind of, while I was doing both those jobs, I always did design work on the side. I always said I wanted to start my own business when I started a family. So when I became pregnant with my first 19 years ago, I then went self-employed and do brand, graphic and web design. So I've done that from home for all of those years, and I love it. I'm basically, I solve problems through design. And the problem that the clients come to me with is communication. They need to be seen. They need to communicate to their audience. So I do that through the web design, through the graphics, through branding. And I love it. I love helping sole traders all the way up to large corporate organizations, and no 2 days are the same. And I love it. I just love being able to serve. I do serve a lot of Christian businesses and charities, but I also serve the whole marketplace. And just, yeah, I love it. Gamble Designs, that's what I come under.
I've got to go there because Wolverhampton was where I grew up. So I was thinking, is there a Wolverhampton-esque accent? Thinking, no, that's not quite right. But actually, if you've been there 2 decades, then there's a good chance.
So I've actively tried not to pick up the Wolverhampton accent, I have to say. I grew up in Bath in the southwest, actually a little village outside of Bath for the first 15 years of my life, a little town called Midsummer Norton. And I did grow up with a Somerset accent, so I can talk like this. And I used to grow up talking like I was a pig farmer. And then I decided I didn't want to sound like a pig farmer and kind of took on the Bath accent, and then in Wolverhampton tried to avoid it, although my children very definitely have it.
Excellent. I have the similar thing of not wanting to sound like I'm from Wolverhampton because my Black Country accent was very strong. I went to Manchester for a year and doing some youth work, and what I found was all the children were saying what, and there's only so many times I can say what that you think, okay, I think I might be the problem here. And my accent then softened. So most people have no clue where I come from because my accent became very, very neutral deliberately because nobody knew what I was saying. And when you're stood in front of 400 kids in a school and they're going, there. So you have to start to speak better. So my lost my Wolverhampton accent. But my little son is happy because he was born in Wolverhampton in the same hospital that I was.
Oh,
I say poor thing, but anyway, so that's Wolverhampton for you. So I won't drop into an accent because that'll just give you shivers. So actually, we were watching NCIS the other day, and Ducky, who's the deaf people guy, did a Brummie accent because one of the actors who came in was from Birmingham, so it was quite fun. Anyway, complete aside. Let's go into faith just a little bit because you're talking about churches and youth and stuff, and Christians in media, which is clearly about Christianity. Where did your faith journey begin?
So my faith journey began when very early on. I remember I was 5 when I knelt down by this side of my parents' bed. They weren't in their room, and I remember that was the second time I gave my life to Christ because I wasn't quite sure. So I can't remember the very first time. And I'd obviously seen some picture somewhere with a child knelt by a bed and their hands together, and kind of thought, right, I must do something like that. But my parents were church leaders at Bath City Church, and I grew up in a Christian home, so I grew up very used to church and church life. We moved from Bath to Midsummer Norton, where my parents pioneered a church plant, and so that was where I ended up in Midsummer Norton. They then went back to Bath later on and became part of Bath City Church again. I did my year at Bible College, so I'm very familiar with kind of church and had that relationship with Jesus from a very early age. I never really backslid, but I think in my teenage years, I probably kind of reaffirmed that more in my own words rather than just under my parents' faith. And I think I remember being on a mission with the church youth group in London, and we were talking to people about Jesus, and I spent 2 hours chatting to a witch who was there just to purely distract us. And I found that really challenging. And I thought, for the very first time, I was like, well, is God real? And it wasn't that I doubted he was real. I just never really asked the question, because growing up in church, you kind of, you choose to believe it. But I'd never really gone through that thought process of, well, is he real? And again, I didn't doubt it, but I just went through a whole nother journey of, right, what am I believing? And just reaffirming that for my own self, in my own words. And then part of then going to Bible college was to kind of, right, I'm got to get into the word for myself. And then I came to Wolverhampton to be part of a brand new church that started here at exactly the same time as I was coming to Wolverhampton. In fact, God's story, I was at Bible college. I had my offer at Wolverhampton Uni. I deferred my entry for a year. Halfway through the year, I said, I'm not going to go to Wolverhampton. I wasn't familiar with any churches there, but the course was still exciting. But I started looking at other universities. That week, a guy called Tony Wastel came to lecture at the Bible College. And he said, before I teach, I'm going to share what I'm doing next year. And he went on to say how he was starting this brand new church in Wolverhampton. And as soon as he said that, everything inside of me went off, and I was like, that's why I'm going to Wolverhampton. So God even knew before I knew why I was going to Wolverhampton. So I came as a student, but I felt really called to Wolverhampton, and 27 years later, still here, still part of that same church. And it's been a phenomenal journey, as church life is.
Isn't that the truth? Yeah, left Wolverhampton a long time ago, and quite happy about that. Moving on. So, faith, design, Christians in media. How do you find you're able to bring your faith into the work you do? Because if if somebody rings you up, hi, I want a logo for my new business. I just want it to be this, and you've got your design brief. You go off and do it. Where does your faith fit into your approach of then serving that, I guess, let's just say, a new customer? How does faith for you affect what it is that you go to do?
That's a really good question. I might just dial it back a bit to identifying as a creative first, because that creative is not what you do, it's who you are. Everything I do creatively. So, if I'm putting up the Christmas decorations, I do it creatively. If I'm cooking, I do it creatively. So it's the same with my faith. It's not what I do, it's who I am. I am a child of God. I am a believer of Jesus. I follow him. I am a disciple of him. So therefore it affects everything I do. So I don't specifically think, right, I'm a Christian. How do I have to show that in my workplace? I think, right, I am a child of God. I love, I respect, I honor, I treat justly. I will invoice the right amount of work. If I've done something wrong, I will own up to it and speak it. So it's who I am in the delivery of my work. So I'm very kind, I'm very gracious, I'm very honoring, and I'm very just. But then on top of that, I think there's another level of just going that empathy and the care and being able to pray for people if they need it. I remember sitting with one client. I often do a lot of my consultations now over Zoom, which is quite nice because it cuts down on travel. But this one particular lady, she didn't want to do Zoom and she wouldn't leave her house. And I went to sit with her, and it turned out she was on the beach when the Tunisian massacre happened, and her and her daughter, and they witnessed it, and they both survived and were safe, but she hasn't left the house since. And her daughter was autistic and spent years and years and years kind of looking after her daughter through that process and never processed it herself. And I remember sitting with her and praying with her at this consultation. And I just thought, God uses you, not because I'm a designer in that, but he uses Christians in whatever situations they're in. And there are many other stories like that I know, God is my source. I work and God provides money through my work. But if a client doesn't pay, or for whatever reason, it's not the worst thing that's ever happened to me, because I know, well, do you know what? God is my source. God is where my provision comes from. I sow and I reap. And so there's some level of just trusting in God in everything I do. But also I serve a lot of Christians. And I think sometimes, and partly, again, I might touch on this when we talk about the network and directory, but partly sometimes Christians don't know what to ask for. And so if I'm, building a website for a church, they know they need a website, but they don't know what they need. Or they know they need a brand, but they don't know what branding is. And I can bring direction. And in fact, actually, a good designer will not just do what they're asked to do. They'll say, okay, you've asked for this, but what you need is this, this, and this. And it's not an upsell. It's actually, sometimes people ask me to put like a stained glass window on a shed. And I'm like, yeah, but have you seen the shed? You really need to sort this first. And so I understand the church Christian audience. I understand their language. I understand the culture. I understand, the environment that they're in. And so I can really help and bring a lot of extra and direction and what they really need. Whereas maybe a non-Christian web designer would just do what they're asked, and it isn't really serving what they need. So yeah, that's kind of a long answer really to a short question, but hope that makes sense.
Hopefully an open question. That was the point. I don't like to dictate too much. And I mean, I pray before I do an interview. We don't do, because we take these, we stick them out onto YouTube later on. But I always say to the office, pray before you edit. We don't do much. Yeah. We just enhance it and trim any bits and pieces that aren't relevant for the actual interview. But people are you going to edit this and do all that? It's like, No, it's a normal conversation on the radio, and we're not going to change that for YouTube. It's the same conversation. Literally, all we're doing is enhancing the audio before we then send it out as well as on the radio. It goes onto the YouTube, so it's enhancing it. And I think it's one of those things. When I was doing sound in churches, I was a worship leader for since I was about 10, 15, but I always did the stuff on the sound desk, and I was always taught you can't make the worship better, but what you can do is enhance what you have. You can destroy it. That's easy. Give them loads of feedback. You've just killed it. But you can't make it better. But what you can do is enhance what you have. And in a sense, I guess that's what you're saying. And asking the right, this is so important. Asking the right questions. We want this. I want a stained glass window on a shed. I can hear that conversation because I've done little bits of design work on and off for the years, not professionally. But you're always thinking, why have you asked for that? Like what? Because then you go back and say, well, what are you actually trying to achieve? And they'll tell you say, no, you really don't want what you asked for, but you try not to be rude about it. But it's also, but that's not what you want. That's what you think you want, but you really, really don't want that. Trust me. And you try and steer them a little bit of a better route. But that's what you should do.
Yeah, I mean, I every job, because my job, it's a service. I'm serving them. I have to get inside their head and understand what they need and then solve it through design. So I literally start with 1,000,001 questions. I always say I'm really nosy, and I kind of am in a way because I love finding out how businesses work in different industries, and industries and sectors that I would never normally come in contact with. I'm able to kind of go, wow, it's like a window on the world, but I have to understand what their service is, what their product is, and who their audience is, and how the needs are, and where the audience is going to be, and then design the solution for that. And so yeah, I love it. It's all about people. It's people at the end of the day, and I work with people, and I'm able to use what's in my hand, a bit like Moses. What's in your hand, he used his staff, and what's in your hand. Well, I'm creative. I'm really good at all the tools that I use, and I can serve you with it. So yeah, that's what I do.
Asking the right question is so important.
It absolutely is.
It's just a complete aside, but reinforce your point. We used to sell cloth nappies. We pray for God to teach. Faith sold a house, bought a shop in, rented a shop in Shrewsbury. And we wanted to sell cloth nappies. And one of the things we found was you can't just sell a nappy to somebody. It's as simple as that. You have to uneducate them, because if you say you're wrong, because most of the stuff people come in, oh, this is stupid. And you say, no, and you have to educate. But before you can sell a cloth nappy to somebody, you have to go down this process of, yes, but everything you think you know is incorrect. And everything you know that you know is wrong. So we have to uneducate them in order to educate them. Once you've done that we didn't sell anything. We didn't have to sell a cloth nappy. That was just what we did. But they would want it because you've unpeeled all the rubbish and you've actually got the information. And I always believe people are quite intelligent and they're not stupid. If you give them the information, they'll make a sensible decision.
Yeah, really. I heard somebody describe it once. If you're selling a piece of art, you're not selling the art, you're selling the story.
Yeah.
And really, I guess that is media. Media is stories. Design is the communication of those stories. It's the curation of them. And I think, in fact, going back to the Engage conference, I can't remember, one of the speakers said that actually storytelling is the most aggressive form of communication there is, because when you tell the story, you hold all of the narrative. And more, I think people use the word storytelling, and that's where we have to be integral in our storytelling. But also, it's about understanding that, I'm not selling the paint on a canvas. If I'm selling an artwork, I'm selling the stories. It's the artist, it's how they did this, it's their struggle. And so that's the educating with the clients. Clients come to me and they say, I do this, I do this, I do this. I say, well, that's fine, but that's not what the client, your customers need to know, how it's going to benefit them, how it's going to help them do what they do, and what problem is it solving for them. Come at it from that point of view. And so, and we do that through words and images and curate it all through brand. And I find it incredibly rewarding.
Yes, which is coming across through a digital screen right now. Because I suppose, in a sense, you are selling the canvas and the paint. Because at some point, you've had to pay for the canvas and you've had to pay the paint. But hey, I can buy canvas and paint and do a painting. It probably won't be quite as popular or valuable because I'm not a painter. But there is still that core basis of, well, anybody can paint. Well, yes, but not everyone can tell a story through paint.
Yes. And I sell a website, but really, that's the kind of 1% of the work that I do, because I can build websites with my eyes closed. Not literally,
No.
'cause they probably wouldn't be very good. But it's the educating, it's the telling people, helping them understand what they need. It's interpreting the data. It's interpreting what they've given me and interpreting that into a website. So I could build websites. I could do a brand new, a couple of weeks. But these projects can take, sort of 4 to 6 months sometimes, because it's actually, I have to work with the client. I am working with them, not for them. And they have to provide the raw data for me to start with. I can't generate something from nothing. And that's often what takes the time. It's just working with the client, and not actually, they say it's 99% perspiration, 1% inspiration. And it's a bit like that in the design process. It's kind of that percentage of just actually doing the design. The rest of it it's the understanding what they need, working with them, and managing all of that.
Yeah, no, totally agree.
People person.
Totally agree. Let's get into the Christian networks that you run then, which is where you ended up being sort of seen for Christians in Media Trustee. Share us a little bit about what is the purpose of that? What was the story behind that?
So I guess the story behind that, it stems from my business journey myself. So as I started my business, I was pregnant. So I then gone on to have 3 children. So the very early stages of my self-employed life, I was pregnant or had tiny babies. And that's a very different season of life for anyone, particularly mothers. But as my youngest was more in full-time nursery, I always say as a parent, you never get your time back, but you do start to get your capacity back. So as my youngest was more in full-time nursery, I really felt prompting from God that I needed to be getting networking, meeting people. That's how I was going to get business. Because there's only so much you can get from your own kind of networks and your own kind of marketing. And so I actually was led to this networking group called Networking Mummies. And it was mums who worked from home. It wasn't Christian, it wasn't creative, but we had this like-minded we were mums and worked from home. And there was this need. It was really low key, and it was just about my level. And as I was coming out of my mum bubble, kind of re-entering, sort of getting myself out there more, it was just what I needed. And I was in this network for about 3.5 years, and I was genuinely surprised how much I grew personally. My business grew, we traded with each other, and I gained friends. And I really felt a prompting from the Holy Spirit that we needed something like that for Christian creatives. And so I took this, I worked with the director of this Networking Mummies, and we adapted this model, and I brought this networking kind of model into the kind of church world, and launched 10 years ago or 9 years ago, Christian Creative Network. And the vision is to champion creativity in the church. And the vision was 3-pronged: to have a network, a directory, and recognition awards. And we started with the network, and I piloted a branch here in Wolverhampton. Around that time, our family started going to the New Wine Summer Camp. I remember going one year and looking at the marketplace with all the other charities and Christian businesses. And I just thought, wouldn't it be fun to come back next year and have a stand for Christian Creative Network? And I did. I went back the next year and I had this stand. I just paid out of my own pocket because we weren't selling anything. By that point, we'd already got 2 more branches that had organically launched. So we had 3 branches. I went to just share the concept of gathering Christian creatives together to support, network, champion, and encourage each other. And we spoke to hundreds of creatives over these 2 weeks. And we had people crying at the stand saying, yes, we need something like this. And so the why. So we have 7 branches now throughout the UK. Each branch has a branch leader. They organise networking events throughout the year, and we do events and workshops. So this Christmas, we've got 3 makers markets around the country that's providing opportunities for those makers. We've done exhibitions. We've got loads of exhibitions throughout the years. And that's another event where, again, artists and designers can show their work. And on the opening nights, we'd have sound and performance, spoken word as well. And then we across our socials, we push out lots of other opportunities that are nationwide, not that we've organised, but that are championing creativity in the church. But if I dial it back to why do we need this? It kind of, I look at the church, and hundreds of years ago, the world would look to the church for creative excellence. They would look to the church for stained glass windows, sculpture, fine art, architecture, hymn. The church was leading the way. But if I look at the church now, I kind of feel like we're playing catch up with the world. I even remember being at an event once. It wasn't a Christian event, but someone described a bad bit of design. They said, "Oh, that's almost as bad as a church poster." And I just thought, if that's what the world thinks of the church, oh my word. And I kind of looked into it a bit more, and I realized that in the 16th century, in the Reformation, when they stripped the gospel back to the basics, it was like the value of creativity was lost. And at the time, it was negligible because it was still inherent in the culture. But hundreds of years later, we have this gap where we were not leading the way. And I feel like there were pockets of the body of the Christ that might do it well. But on a whole, there was a weak creative culture in the UK church. And so part of the idea of the network is getting together these like-minded Christian creatives and going to them directly and saying, what you have got is vital for the church. God first revealed himself to the world as the creator God. The first person in the Bible to be filled with the Holy Spirit was a creative. And I truly believe that creativity is the most influential tool available to the church today, and yet the most underutilized. But I do believe also we are in a renaissance of creativity. So the tides are turning. There is a restoring of this creative value. And we see that through, you go to conferences and they have a creative stream. There was a time when there were no creative streams, or you have creative conferences, or you have, I guess it's kind of come through the comms role within local churches. That never used to exist. But in the wider church as well, just businesses and charities, there are hundreds of thousands of these Christian creatives that have come through creative career paths, but maybe feel isolated because they're freelance. A lot of creatives do freelance, or they're the only Christian in their creative sort of industry, in their role. And so the network gathers together these creatives and just encourages. And we share stories, we hear from guest speakers, and we hear their journey. And your creative expression could be quite, creativity is vast and broad, but there are certain things that all creatives go on in their journey. A lot of creatives struggle with imposter syndrome and how they price work and how they get work and how they market themselves. And so, being alongside other people and sharing those journeys is really, really vital for Christian creatives. God created in the Trinity. You never create alone, and so just networking together as well means you can trade together, you can work together, you can subcontract. There's lots of benefits. But 3 years ago we launched Christian Creative Directory, and the reason there was a gap between the launching of those is because I wanted to do it well, and I'd attracted seed funding to build the directory, and that meant we could just launch and do it really well. So the directory comes under the same mission to champion creativity in the church, but a slightly different vehicle than the network. And the directory, it's christiancreativedirectory.com. As a creative individual or business, you can go up, click sign up, create your own listing. You pay £3.50 a month if you're an individual or non-profit, £9.50 a month if you're a larger organization. And it's a way, it answers the question, where do you go to find Christian creatives? And so people can go to that directory and find all of those creative services. So it's artist and design, digital, sound and performance, marketing, written. And if you want a drone pilot, you can go and find one there. If you want an SEO expert, you can go and find one there. If you want a sculptor, you can go and find one there. And we also advertise creative jobs and opportunities. So Christian businesses, churches and charities go to the directory and they pay to list opportunities, and then we push that out to our thousands of followers. And I'm so pleased to say that since we've launched, we have connected hundreds of creatives with hundreds of roles. And for me, that ticks that box, championing creativity in the church. I know I've talked and talked, but one story that just kind of sums up what the directory does. Was that CAP, Christians Against Poverty, they listed an opportunity on the directory. They were looking for Christian children's writers. We pushed this opportunity out to all of our followers. I know 11 people responded, and the lady at CAP, she emailed me and said, "This is amazing. We've never known where to find Christian children's writers." And she said, "Right, we're going to post for an illustrator now." So they posted for an illustrator. They shortlisted, so they had a writer and an illustrator. Shortly after that, they released a resource that taught children about poverty. And I just thought, that's exactly what it's there for. So it's a very niche kind of gap in the market, but it was a gap nonetheless. And we're just about to relaunch version 2 of this directory, which will just enable us to be more effective in how we reach and serve the Christian creative community.
I was going to show you something that's show and tell now. So,
really?
Yeah, it is. So we published a magazine which we started in February, and I have met now 3 people who, let's just call them what they are. They are experts in the magazine print world. Okay, they are really good in their own fields. I'm not going to mention who they are or what they do. These are experts, and they pick up a copy of the magazine and said, "Do you know, when we first heard about this, we just thought, oh, it's another rubbish churchy thing," and then they pick it up and say, "This is like an actual proper magazine, isn't it?" "Well, yes, it is." "How did you make it?" "We just made it." "Well, you must have a massive team." "No, we just did it in-house." Why? Because we were passionate about it. There's a big thing. And I share the magazine, partly because it's on my t-shirt, but also because it is quite possible to make really high quality stuff. And people who pick up the magazine now are saying, "This is amazing. We didn't know you could make stuff like this anymore. This is like the sort of thing you find in the magazine rack at what was Smith's." Yes, we know. That's what we've tried to create, a high quality magazine. So it's very possible to do it. Now, God's opened various doors for us, but I share that because it is possible to make high quality content. And that's what's really important to us. When we started our radio station, September 23, I got a phone call from Tim Vince at Revelation TV. His neighbor happens to be someone who now works with us all the time. He said, "Oh, come on, Rev TV, come and talk about the radio station. How long have you been going?" "Well, it's about 2 weeks." No, seriously, you've been like 5-10 years. No, literally, we started on the 1st September. This is the mid-end of September, because we went for excellence on the graphics, because we worked really hard. Now they've evolved and they've changed. But he couldn't believe that we've been going a few weeks, because he thought this is many, many years of work. Why do I bring all this up on what you just said? Because I absolutely believe that as individuals, we are massively creative. If Jesus said we can do more than him, and God made the world, not we can make worlds, but, we can set the bar a bit higher than, here's a piece of paper that says we like Jesus. We can do better. Do you remember this one? Jesus is better than the real thing. They took the Coke slogan and they nicked it and made it Christian. And I just thought, I was, 15, 18. Come on, we can do better than nicking off somebody else's idea. Can we not generate this? We are Christians. We're made in the image of God. He generated the hydrological cycle, and you can nick the Coke slogan and stick Jesus in front of it. Can we not do better? And the simple answer, which you're proving, is yes, we can.
Yes, we can. But to the average Joe blogs who doesn't maybe have creative connections, where do you find these fabulous Christian creators? And I think all the years I've been doing this, I guess I've connected more and more and more with so many amazing creative things that's going on. And when the English women's football team were playing Euros at Wembley, the guy who designed all the artwork up that Wembley Mile and up the steps and the flags was a Christian. And that had national influence. And, there are amazing, phenomenal Christian designers who do this stuff. The guy who runs the Birmingham Design Festival is a Christian. And there's so much stuff there. But because for such a long time, there has been I say it's a weak culture because there was a lack of value for it in the local church context. There's a lot of maybe Christian creatives who felt they couldn't fulfill their giftings in that. If they're a musician, great, you could be in the band, but not all musicians are meant for worship bands. You're creative, do the kids craft. Well, not all creative people can do kids craft. You're a social media, but can we do that for free? But we'll pay, this tradesperson who's coming to fix something in the church, we'll pay them a fair rate, but you can do that for free. And so there's this non-value or low value. And again, this is a broad brushstroke, and there are pockets of the body of Christ that do it phenomenally well. But that the church has missed a trick, but also it's not cultivated this creative culture. But we are seeing that turn, which is super exciting. So this renaissance. And do you know that there is a verse? I remember I thought, I've been a creative all my life, and it took about adult years to find it. I'm rubbish at remembering numbers. I'm dyslexic. So I write it, and it's Zechariah 1:21. It's pinned on my monitor. And it talks about the end times, and how the four horns of the artisans will arise to terrify the enemy. And it's in the Bible, when it talks about four, it's the four corners of the world, so it's the whole world. When it talks about horns, it's power and authority. And it talks about the artisans or the craftspeople rising up to terrify the enemy. And I was like, oh my word, why have I never heard this? And it's actually, the creativity is terrifying because it's such a powerful tool. Not creativity for creativity's sake, but creativity attached to a cause. And we are the best cause. We have the gospel, and creativity attached to the cause is a superpower. And creativity is a vehicle that delivers a message, or a bridge that connects. And where this discord has been, where this gap has come over the years with the people not engaging with the gospel, is because we've lost the bridge and the vehicles through these creative means and tools. So I find it a hugely exciting time. I've connected with so many creative things that have been happening over the UK over these years, and printers who will print at cost price for Christians because that's part of their ministry, and people who get together, coders and developers, because they want to connect them together and see things happening. And it's part of Christians in media, what they're doing and connecting these people. So it's really exciting. I think we're still seeing at the beginnings of this renaissance, but I think creativity will be at the forefront of the next revival that we see in the UK.
I'm going to give a very big amen to that, because having worked in churches and now serving in a very different way, we are Christians, but we're trying to reach a much, much wider audience. But there's so much of, oh yeah, that'll do. No, that's not good enough. We can do better than that. And we've scoured 5,500 tracks to make sure there's no bad language in any of the music you play. It's really time consuming because it's worth it, and we can do better than, well, it's not so bad. No, we don't need that. We don't need to have that. And we've got, all sorts of people from backgrounds enjoying what we do because we're creating a radio station which nobody else has done that anybody knows of, where we literally are scanning for bad language and we don't play those songs. Nobody else we know of has done that. I mean, the really bad stuff, maybe, but we go a bit further. And I think that'll do. That's on the tombstone of the Christian church sometimes. Oh, that's good enough. Do you know? No, it's not. We should be paying people. Remember this? There's a supermarket. Oh, we want an artist to come and do our cafeteria for our staff. So not many people are going to see it. We want you to come and do it for free because then you'll have the honour of having done it. And you're thinking, pay them the money. Pay them the work.
It's a funny thing. When we vet every listing on the directory and every opportunity that gets listed before it goes live, and we every now and then get, oh, come and do this for free and we'll give you exposure. And we're like, nope. We are not opposed to listing opportunities for free because, for an entry level position, for some people, that's, they're starting their creative journey. They need to build their portfolio. I remember a magazine listed for, they wanted writers, and they said, look, we can't pay you, but we will invest in you. We will train you and we will work with you. And I thought, fine, be upfront about it. That's fine. But don't smoke and mirrors and say, oh yeah, we might employ you. We might give you something. Blatantly, you're just trying to get something for free. But that's kind of an undoing of culture that we need to undo. Yeah. Which is why it does excite me that when local churches have comms roles, they're putting their money where their mouth is. It's not an afterthought. It's communication necessity. And really, communicating is, a social media marketer will reach thousands and thousands of people, which in turn will come into the church, which in turn will turn into tithes and finances. And so there's a value, but it starts with the value of it, not just paying someone. It's got to be a value of this is a God-given gift of, it's important. We need to value that with a monetary kind of reward as well, but the value has to come first.
I completely agree. Everybody at Pure is voluntary, including me. No one gets paid, and that's across the board. So when someone says, "Oh, you should pay," why? Okay, that's different. No one gets paid here, so everybody's voluntarily doing everything. We're not trying to get stuff out of people, but do you want to contribute into what we're doing? And everybody who's involved is loving it because they get to do stuff which they couldn't do, like the radio or the magazine. But no one's getting paid, so we're all on the same level. That's okay, and I think it's being on the same level which matters to me personally. You say, "Well, I get paid, but you don't need it." No, that's out of line. That's wrong. The companies that are saying, we'll give you some investment, yeah, that's a whole different thing. You've got to start somewhere. We get so many requests to play music, as you might appreciate as a radio station, and every single one, almost every single one, goes in the bin. And it goes in the bin for one reason. We don't have time to read it, and it's too long, it's too complicated, and you're not saying respectfully, would you consider this? It's usually like a 17-page document on why we must play their music. It goes in the bin because we don't have the time or the capacity to read it. If you want to get somewhere, be polite and respectful, whether it's in creative or asking for work or whatever. Respect and politeness goes quite a long way. Let's just, because we need to wrap this up. Where would you like people to come? You've got your design work, you've got the Christian Creative Network, you've got the Christian Creative Directory. Now, we'll stick these on the website when this goes out on the YouTube, but where would you like people to come to if they want to find out more about how you can serve them, whether it's creating a logo or helping them with the creative network or directory?
So for my business personally is gambledesigns.co.uk. Forgetting my own web address there. And that you can see the work I do, and if you want to talk about me designing for you, then you can contact me through there. The network and directory have their own website, so it's christiancreativenetwork.com, christiancreativedirectory.com. You can go to the network and you can search branches, see if there's one near you. If there's not one near you, you could apply to become a branch leader and start a network near you. We would love that. We'd love to have hundreds and hundreds of networks all over the country. We are a small voluntary organization, so we too don't have a huge team. All the branch leaders are voluntary. There is a business model in there when they run workshops and events that they can be paid for their time, but all of the network and everything is voluntary. And a lot of our branch leaders choose to not claim any money anyway. They're doing it because they're passionate. But that said, if we're a little bit slow to apply, please don't hound us too much. And then christiancreativedirectory.com. If you are a creative and you want to be found, go and sign yourself up. You get 3 months free. We're just about to do the new directory, which we will give a whole load of time for free as well anyway. So now's a good time to join because you'll probably get quite a lot of time for free. And then it's only $3.50 a month, the price of I used to say the price of a coffee. I think coffee's more than $3.50 now.
More than $3.50 now.
So it's cheaper than the price of a coffee a month. And again, we put that price in because we know it needs to cover its costs. We want people to value it, but equally, it's a service to the creative community, not to it's not a business set up to make money. We're here to serve.
Thank you. So if you want to find out more from Josie, gambledesigns.co.uk. Josie, we're going to have to finish that, but thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. It's been wonderful.